Finally, the divine times of energy are upon us. I was gonna do a trial deck unboxing thing, but turns out this entire deck is all vanillas besides the boss. So all I'll say on that matter is I picked up the Keter and Darkstate one to mess around with, and ended up pulling Elementaria out of both. Because of that, instead of showing you what's inside, we're going to show you what I could do with what's inside. Because with the new construction format going around recently, I still need to build around a boss with one of these. There's only one way to show off just what you can do. We're just doing the Darkstate one today. Give us a bunch of likes and I'll show you what I did with Keter. So welcome to Act 1 of the Gear Moon Circus. Starting things off, the main attraction of the circus is of course this cool little kitty. Guys, I think I just discovered a new thing. The Cruel Beast Demonic Lord Oselargest, who just like all the rest of the Trideck bosses has two different skills, one of which shares with literally every other one. So, first of all, is activated once per turn, you're allowed to counterblast one in order to search for a copy of him, add to your hand, and then give him a plus 10. This is deceptively good, because not only does that you have Persona Ride for next turn, which means you don't have to open extra copies, you're always a guaranteed extra card in hand, but he's going to gain that plus 10,000, thus making him a 23 on his own. Good thing to note here is that even if you whip on the Persona Ride, even if you search out all three copies of him already, you can still counterblast one just to gain the power. So keep that in mind if you do need a power boost and you have plenty of counterblast to spare. As for his unique skill down here though, just like a couple of the other bosses, on attack he's going to be able to pay an energy blast 4 costs in order to do a thing. If you guys aren't in the know yet, these new energy crests are going to give you, well, energy, which is a new sort of resource that I've gone over in a couple other videos. TLDR is another source of mana, get used to it. As for his 4 cost energy blast, you're going to be able to call a card right after your soul to field to give it a plus 10. This is going to give you a 4th attack on a standard board, saying you have rear guard, Vanguard swing, rear guard comes over at other rear guard. Pretty usual for Darkstate, but of course this is a pretty generic card, which means you play the best of the best. And we'll get into a couple of those cards in just a second. Because of that, it's going to be very important to balance all the cards that are in your soul and board at all times, but of course this being a Darkstate deck, your soul is your best friend. Moving on to the Rideline of choice, we are going with Jejul, because these two boys have so much synergy together, it's ridiculous. So of course the main attraction when you ride Jewel Neil over the grade 1, you're going to be able to call that grade 1 out of soul. And his effect says that on rear guard, whenever he boosts or attacks, he gets a plus 5, thus being a 13k, and then goes back to soul afterwards like a good Darkstate card. Going back to soul automatically is going to clear him off the board, get him away from destruction, and set him up as a target for Oselargest on itself. So right there, that makes him a pretty valuable card. Spoilers, we are running a full playset. In addition to that, the 13k means he can attack on his own, you don't need to worry about boosting him. And once again, Oselargest is going to give him a plus 10 power, thus making him a 23k, hitting over defensive trigger if they happen to hit one. Super good? Of course, you can't play him without running his grade 2, who says that on hit, you're able to soul charge 1. This is okay. You're not going to necessarily be relying on this, but it is very nice that has some on-hit pressure on turn 2, while at the same time beefing up your soul for Oselargest plays later. As for your supporting actors, like I said, it's very important to be putting cards in soul, so let's take a look at that soul management real quick. First off, we got this classic gear girl, Zargon, who says that if some that she boosts hits, you're able to take 2 cards from your drop zone, shove them back in soul. So it's really good for early game, where your Rideline really doesn't matter, and of course if you happen to be guarding with any important units, you can shove them back in soul, so on and so forth. But the more important part is that if you do have something on the field that you're not able to suck into soul, when you Oselargest and you call a card over it, goes out, guess who's going to be able to put that rear guard back in soul. Super important piece, we're only running it as a 2 up here because you really don't want to boost the Vanguard with it, but I can see moving it up to 3 or 4 if you have the room. Of course, another very good girl is a more expensive card. I think the normal one's at about $16 right now on TCG Player, which, spoilers, if you want to help support me on this channel, make sure you check out my page on TCG Player for all your card game needs. All that, of course, goes back towards more content creation, so I can get more cool cards to do, more decks to show off, more box openings, all that fun stuff. Or, of course, gets you some raised energy because, you know, it's a energy drink that I am affiliated with, and I have code Skyward to save 50% online for any of your orders on repsports.com. Anyways, Millennium Falcon made here has one important effect and one that doesn't matter because we're never going to be on grade 4, and that is when she attacks a grade 3 or greater unit. Choose up to 1 Darkstate card from your drop zone, shove it back in soul. Then for every grade of that card, she's going to get a plus 5,000 for that attack. This is going to make her our main attacker for wave 1. Of course, you're not going to be able to play her until your opponent's at grade 3, which kind of sucks. But once you get there, say you've got a grade 3 in drop zone, yum 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 plus 15, she's instantly a 25k attacker without doing anything. Huge, this sets up your soul for Oselargest, of course, and helps get cards out of your drop zone for sheer renewing because that card still exists for some reason. Then speaking of Demonic Maze, we also run 2 of this one, and that is for 2 specific reasons. First of all, as you'll see in a second, we do run a handful of orders that will put you off her first skill, that being if she's played during a turn not by card effect. This is important. Not by the effective Osalergast, so you won't be able to queue off that. That's why we only ran 2 copies. But if she's played, if you have an order or whatever, you're able to search your top 5 for another order or a unit to call to the field. So this is instantly a +1. Quick shout out to the main order that we run here is going to be able to call a card out of Soul. So say she is in the Soul, call it out of this. She calls a card out of your deck. Boom, 2-for-1 combo. But her other cool effect, which is another reason that we only run 2 of it because it's a little controversial, is that when she attacks a grade 3, Soul Blast 3, in order to draw a card to give her +5. It's going to be a 15k attacker on her own, which means she can attack without a boost, and helps you draw a card by getting rid of some cards you don't need in Soul. Also setting up for things, once again, like Valkyria or Zargon. Things that help put your drop zone back into your Soul. Really good synergy, it just doesn't always work the best, which is why we have it as a 2 of. Then as long as I'm mentioning our grade 2 units, let's talk about these 2. First of all, the Cycle grade 2. As always, when you discard it for Rideline, you can Soul Blast 1, put it on bottom deck and draw a card. Really good for your first few turns. Other effects is also really good for your after first few turns. And that is, when this card is placed from hand, most important, you cannot exchange this off Osalergast effect. If you Persona Raid this turn, you can Counter Blast 1, call a card from your Soul, and if you do that, you're able to Soul Charge 1 to replace it. So really good. Once again, this is just like the combo with the Demonic Maid, where you're able to get a 2 card off of 1 call effect. And of course, she does replace the Soul with another Soul Charge. Really solid. Between these last 2 grade 2s I mentioned, you're always going to have a board, so you don't have to worry about control effects. And of course, Persona Ride. This deck is going to Persona Ride a lot because of the ability of the grade 3s to search out their copies. Of course, because you Persona Ride a lot, let's also mention our choice of Regalia piece for the deck. No, it's not ladder. That doesn't matter right now. A +5 in protection from field is nice. Oh no, it's not like I just mentioned 20 different ways to get cards back from drop zone. More importantly though, you want the power. This is going to be a 4-attack deck. You want to be in Persona Ride at all point in time. Guess what this does? Then for the last card where Persona Ride actually matters, let's go to one of my favorites that I've barely ever had a chance to use, and that is Clean Sweep Dragon, this really cool looking Gear Chronicle Dragon. And he has the basic effect that if you Persona Ride that turn, Counter Blast 1, choose up to 3 different rear guards from either side of your field. So you can take some off yourself, you can take some off your opponents, shove them in their owner's respective souls, and then for every card Soul Charge, he's going to get a +5. So this does a couple things. First of all, this is your control for the deck. Obviously, if your opponent has a full field, you're able to put 3 of those cards right into your Soul. Yum, 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 control cards. Also, if your field doesn't matter and you want stuff that be in your Soul for Osalergast, you can also yum, yum that. Either way, it's going to be gaining power. This +15 is basically going to be a +25 if you think about it, because Persona Ride as well, which makes him a 35k attacker for no freaking reason. Solid card to keep out if you're on Persona Ride turn, and if not, he's just a really cool looking Gear Chronicle Dragon, so you play him anyways. I want to talk about my Gear Chronicle cards. Let's talk about the other Gear Chronicle cards. Gear Chronicle Perfect Guard, shut up. She's back. We use her whenever we can. The other Perfect Guard is, of course, your last order in the deck. I mean, why would you not run Elementary Sanctitude? It is literally one of the best cards in the game, being a Perfect Guard that you don't have to discard for if you go against a Stride deck or another Grade 4 deck. Also gets around various forms of Guard Trick because it is an order that gets placed in the order zone. Gear Heal, I'm just going to show this off real quick because we are going to talk about our heal triggers being the most important trigger in the deck. For this split, I am running 2 normals, then run one of the one for the restands, and one of the ones where it's a grade higher. I did this mainly because Shiranui exists, and we have a lot of good Stride decks right now. This in general is really good for if you happen to go second, because your opponent is always going to be a grade higher than you for the first few turns. If you draw an early game, boom, 20k shield, that's going to be very helpful. Same if you guys against a Stride deck, of course. And I think more importantly right now, we have a lot more restanders in the game than we do multi-crit cards. So you can just run 4 vanillas if you want. I'm just saying, if you run your specials, this is my recommendation right now. Comment down below what kind of heals you guys run. Then the final gear theme card of this deck is my little birdie friend right here, who's best friends with the Grade 1 in the Rideline. And that is because when his attack hits that this thing boosted, you can retire this card, choose Grade 1 card from your Soul, and call it up to rear guard. So this is an attack extender. This makes you extremely aggressive. Like I'm saying, if you open a couple of these guys and some grade 1s, you can push 4 to 5 attacks on turn 1 or 2. Why he's best friends with the grade 1 in the Rideline though? Let's take a look at our Adradule again, who says, when it does this thing, it's going to get +5, and then go right back in the Soul. This happens at the exact same time as your Gear Eagle goes off. So, by the fact that you can combo in any order that you want to in this game, you can effectively say, Bird boosts Dragon, Dragon goes to Soul, did the attack hit, cool, retire your bird, call Dragon back out of Soul. Instantly, you get 2 attacks free off of this Dual Core Dragon, which is even better later in the game, and you get power to everything that's attacking, which means the combo with Bird and Osalergast, you can effectively get 3 attacks in 1 turn off of this dude. Being first swing solo, goes to Soul, Osalergast calls him out of Soul, have the bird boost him, and if it happens to hit, you can call him right back out. 3 attacks for 1 card, all thanks to a couple other supporting actors. Then the final guy to mention that isn't a trigger is, of course, your cycle grade 3 for the deck, Causality Dragon, Crucial Dragon, who, much like all the others, says that if you happens to get a trigger, he gets +10/+10. So he's going to be your last attack most of the time. And then his effect, who says that if he's not being boosted, you can take that card in the same column, shove it back in Soul, to either retire your card and gain +5, or use their move and over trigger effect to give him guard restrict, making it a very solid finisher. A couple of things about this. First of all, this goes back to our Falcreas, this goes back to our Zargons, this goes back to our attack resetters. You can shove another piece for the boy back into Soul to prep up for another play. Second off, the attack boost is very nice here, since it does stack on top of Ultragate's ability, +10, making him a 23k. Then if you happen to have your opponent's defensive trigger, he's a 33k. For free. It's just value, like, not Sojas values, nothing's gonna ever be a Sojas. This is just the valueless card in value. Then, real quick, so the other things they mention, Overtrigger, you always use this Overtrigger, why would you not use this Overtrigger? I mean, I guess you could use the blue Overtrigger if you care about getting cards back from your drop zone, but why would you not do the one that just constantly makes your Vanguard a threat? We run 8 crits. I use the Soul one because it matters, because you like having Soul in this deck, I guess, and this one is a Nightmare Doll, which is awesome, and I can't wait to put her in the correct deck. Then we choose running a couple fronts in this. It's a 4-attack deck. These fronts just give you more shield than a draw does, but if you want to run draws instead, go for it. Guys, look, here's the deck code if you want to copy it. Other options! So real quick, I'll give you a lucky 7 of a couple of techs I want to go over, because they will also work pretty well for the deck. Of course, there's plenty of other options that you can run this boy, but I want to keep you guys all here today. So if you have your own suggestion with what runs best with the big dark Manticore, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. Oh, and while you're down there, make sure that you're subscribed because, you know, subscribing is good. And start things off, you got your Soul Draw duo in Rising Dragon and Time Dragon, who is more important because his name is almost my name, and he's the Gear Chronicle card. So, not saying the avatar because that's always going to be Chrono Jet, but it's literally me as a Gear Dragon. These cards basically have an effect that say that when you play them, you're able to take a card from your hand, shove it in Soul, and then draw a new card to replace it. This helps you set up for Ultragate's plays, of course, putting cards in Soul. Filter Draw gets you draw another card, digging into your deck, and they can attack on their own with this being a 13k, and the other one, an early game card that you can play on grade 2, I guess. Setup City, baby. As for a card that can take all those cards and take them back out of Soul back to your hand, you got Miroslava, who says was placed from a hand during main phase. Counterblast 1, choose a card with a grade equal to or less than your Vanguard. Put in your hand if the card was the same name as your Vanguard, and call it if not. Then if you put a card in hand, she gets +5. So basically the way this reads is, if placed from a hand during your main phase, aka not the time that you want to Ultragate stuff, she's going to be able to either cycle Persona Ride back to hand, linking Persona Ride even more, or it's Superior Call another card, doubling up with all of your stuff that calls from Soul, like the Order and the grade 2 cycle card. It's okay. I was actually running this in my initial build, but it turned out I didn't like all of the plays I was making with her, so we ultimately took her out to maximize a couple other things. Still a pretty solid pick though if you want to get more out of your Persona Ride turns. Then as a counter charge tech, because you do counterblast a decent amount in this, I'm going to mention Selfish Engraver, who has on hit the Soul Charge 1. Then after she attacks, if you happen to have a big Soul of 10 cards, you get shoved in Soul and counter charge 1. The reason it's on the maybe pile is that you're not always going to have 10 card Soul, but when you get there, she is a free counter charge, and once again, this is on hit pressure, which is always solid, as you saw with the grade 1 combos. This is a very aggressive deck, so this gives you aggressive play to do on turn 2. Katie, also a counter charger. Only reason this wasn't in the main build is purely because the Rideline matters so much in this deck, at least the grade 1 copy. But I guess if you want to get rid of your Dradneil and your starter, go for it. This also counts as another front trigger, being a 20k shield. So defensive cards, counter charges, good kitty, just not as good as the big kitty. And of course, this is a Soul Charging deck. You want the Soul Charger guy. Here's the Soul Charger guy. Look at him. Look at the Brainwash twirler. There he is. Those of you guys that didn't know, this is essentially drawing the thruster on an 8k rearguard, and it lets you Soul Charge your card when you play it, so it's a pretty good card. I mean, it doesn't get the power until you're at grade 3, so that doesn't matter in the early game, which is when you want to play cards because it's a very aggressive deck, but I mean, it sure is an option that you can play and does combo quite well with all your Soul Charging and Ultragate's own effect to call cards out of Soul. Really good option? That's just, I like the bird combo. So, I forgot to mention this guy. Basically, think about him as a poor man's Oriens, as a cool Gear Chronicle Colossus, and we're only paying attention to his first effect because we're never on grade 4. But basically, what you're gonna do with this guy is when he's called out from your Vanguard's ability, counterblast 1, draw a card, get +5. So here's another thing that's a 15k attacker that lets you draw a card. Only thing is, this one is attached to counterblast 1 instead of a Soul Blast 3. But hey, we finally have use for him outside of randomly hitting it in Chrono Jet. So that is a really quick look at our evil Manticore Dragon, who is such a cool card. I am in love with the Trial Deck bosses, even if they're generic, even if we don't get their actual support until the main set drops. Make sure there'll be a breakdown when that comes out or whatever. It's just really cool the fact that they're able to essentially search out copies of themselves to guarantee Persona Rise, and also tied up with really cool effects that tie into her nation, like how this one calls cards out of the soul because Dark State. What do you guys think about the Trial Deck bosses? Which one's your favorites? Do you want to see me talk about the other one that I bought? Because this guy is not as good as Grand Grace, but it's a Grand Grace. Make sure you comment down below and make sure that subscribe button is no longer red, because we are now racing for 200 subs, and once we get there, I don't know, it'd be cool. So make sure you subscribe for playing more Coaster card game content here on the channel. Until next time, I gotta make some Shadowverse vids, so always, embrace the infinite.